Hello, I'm Lorna from Capilla Horizons, and I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon with Despoina, who most of you know is the IPA NGO representative at the United Nations. And given that we couldn't meet face to face, I'm going to ask Despoina to answer some questions about her work at the UN and the role of IPA for justice contacts, so that people can hopefully get a better understanding of how they all can work together. So I'm just going to start off by asking Despoina, what inspires you, Despoina, about the IPA?
Thank you, Lorna, for your question, and thank you for having me here today. The story of the Presentation Sisters goes back 300 years in Ireland, where our foundress, Nan O'Neill, dedicated herself to reducing poverty and helping those in need. This compassionate presence and zeal for the care of the people is still what guides the IPA members and presentation people around the world. And this is what has fascinated me, actually, from the first time I heard about the IPA mission and work worldwide. In the IPA, we work together with one another in oneness, and as well as with others outside the IPA, of course, to bring about global justice. This is a unique characteristic that everyone, I think, should appreciate and honor.
Oh, thank you very much. And what are the main elements of the IPA's work that you've been involved with?
In 2000, the IPA was accredited with a consultative status at the UN Economic and Social Council, the ECOSOC. This year, actually, we celebrate our 20 years at the UN. The IPA uses this status to influence policies at the UN, to advocate for vulnerable people, for people in need, with a particular focus on the areas of women and children, sustainable development goals, human rights, indigenous people, and environment. The IPA representative at the UN is the voice of the voiceless, as I like to say. She connects the grassroots and the UN by bringing in the experiences of local communities to the UN, and by facilitating grassroots participation at UN events. The IPA NGO representative is the voice of the IPA at the UN.
Oh, that sounds great. So what do you actually do?
In this framework, I participate in certain UN activities and processes, such as UN events, as well as NGO committees in relation to the IPA foci. These contributions have the potential to bring about positive changes for the people and the planet.
And would it be possible for you to give me an example?
Sure, let me give you an example. I wish we had more time to give more than one example, but we probably won't. As a member of the Grassroots Task Force Subcommittee of the NGO Committee on Social Development, I was asked to present the data of the 2019 Grassroots Survey in relation to inequalities and homelessness, inadequate housing, at the side event that took place during the UN Commission for Social Development this year in February. We asked about inequalities in the survey because the SDG 10 was a focal point of last year's high-level political forum.
Great. And what did this achieve?
During my presentation, I had the opportunity to link my remarks with the recent example of a good practice where the Australian Presentation Sisters donated acres of land to be used for affordable housing and for addressing homelessness. The latter was the priority theme for this year's Commission for Social Development. So I think that not only did I succeed in bringing the voices of our people from the ground to the UN level by quoting comments and relevant concerns in my presentation, I also managed to bring to the attention of the UN and the NGO community here the IPA contributions to addressing the needs of the most vulnerable at the grassroots level. The justice contacts that responded to this survey played a big role in bringing these voices to me at the UN level.
Oh, that's great, thank you. So you just mentioned the justice contacts. Could we move on to talking a bit more about them? And why do you feel the role of justice contacts is so important?
Yes, we live in a global world. We are aware that everything is connected and that what happens locally affects the whole world, just as what happens globally affects the local situation. The IPA justice contacts play a crucial role on this. In this, as the NGO representative, I can be totally effective to the extent that I represent people's realities. And this can be achieved through the concerns reports I receive from the grassroots by regular communication channels. The justice contacts can effectively and efficiently contribute to the NGO representatives' work. They can let me know about their lived experience or what is happening on the local level in relation to UN topics, about the challenges they face or the sisters encounter at the local, regional, national level, or the best practices they have achieved. This constitutes a crucial way for projecting such issues to the international level. As I like to say, they are my eyes and ears on the ground, and I am their voice at the UN. Our hearts lie at the center of all this, with one common aim: to help those in need. So, as you can see, we can say that we have everything we need to work effectively and have a successful outcome.
That sounds great. And it sounds like being able to communicate between yourself and the justice contacts is really important. And what do you see as the most effective ways of communicating?
Mm-hmm. There are many ways for this communication, through regular communication by emails or by phone calls or conferences calls, Zoom calls, by engaging in what we are doing at the UN, for example, by using our social media platforms and actively involving in our advocacy activities. One such platform, if I may say, of receiving and sending information is Twitter. Which is also, interestingly, the main channel of receiving regular information by the UN itself.
That's great, thank you. So through your involvement of the facilitation of the IPA strategy, I've been most impressed by the way the IPA has taken a human rights approach to its work on the Sustainable Development Goals. So with this in mind, can you highlight the relevance of the linkages between the UN's work in New York and Geneva and the importance of this for IPA?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad, Lorna, you're asking me this question. Indeed, it's impressive the way that the IPA members and presentation people have been working on implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They are engaging in partnerships at local, national, and international levels to achieve the SDGs. The 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development Goals is a relatively new framework at the UN, if I may say. But actually, the presentation sisters and the IPA have been doing this for hundreds of years through their missions and advocacy on the ground worldwide. Responding to your question, in New York, the High-Level Political Forum, the HLPF, is the central platform for follow-up and review of the 2030 Agenda. A central feature of the HLPF are the Voluntary National Reviews, the VNRs. And in Geneva, the Universal Periodic Review, the UPR, is a unique process which involves a review of the human rights records of all UN member states. Both mechanisms are state-driven processes And addressing, as far as the IPA, addressing the people's and Earth needs by embracing the Sustainable Development Goals in a human rights framework lies among the IPA General Assembly's commitments. So I encourage the IPA members and presentation people to keep engaging in both the mechanisms of VNRs and UPRs that allow greater participation in the process of successfully implementing the SDGs. By sharing experiences, successes, challenges and lessons learned through these mechanisms, we strengthen policies and institutions of governments. We also mobilize multi-stakeholder support and partnerships for accelerating the implementation of the 2030 agenda, so as no one is left behind.
Oh, thank you. That's very good. And given the times we're living in now are so difficult and uncertain, the coronavirus pandemic is having dreadful implications for so many people across the world. And it's testimony to the APA's conviction about the importance of achieving justice, dignity, and respect for people everywhere that is continuing, albeit online, with the Chicago and Bangkok gatherings. I just wondered, from your standpoint, now that the UN is unable to function in the normal way, what are the challenges that this presents for you, and how are you dealing with these in your work?
Yes, we have all evidenced with great concern the rapid increase in the numbers of people all over the world affected by this coronavirus disease. This pandemic is not just a health issue, you know. It is a profound shock to our societies and to our economies. Due to the current outbreak of the coronavirus disease, the UN has stepped up measures to safeguard all those using its offices, all of us, while at the same time safeguarding, ensuring that our critical work continues to deliver on supporting those in need. There is an obvious need to reduce our physical presence at the UN headquarters. We're doing this through implementing full-time telecommuting or online conferences called. We must continue to follow the recommendations of national and international public health authorities by staying at home and working remotely. Although this pandemic has forced us to operate in new ways, our work still continues largely uninterrupted. We pledge support for those suffering from invisible impacts of the ongoing pandemic, including women and children. Not only we need to defeat the new pandemic, we also have to mitigate, I think, its social and economic impacts. For example, we need to protect gains made in gender equality or in education or towards the eradication of poverty. The issues and concerns we deal with have not disappeared. We must find ways to continue to advocate, though, although we are not sitting together. Be rest assured that we are in this together.
No, thank you, Despoina, and I think it's a testament to the IPA that we are still going to be together in Chicago and Bangkok, albeit not physically together. So thank you so much. And I'd just like to end by, as well as appreciating your time in putting this together, just offering to people listening that if they do have any questions or want to discuss any issues, are you happy for people to email you or contact you?
Yes, of course. Feel free, everyone, to contact me in case you have any question or you need to chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you for having me.